Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast, Internetology. I am Catherine Zimmerman, and I am a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I am currently enrolled in a course called the Psychological Effects of the Internet. And in today's episode, we will be going over online learning platforms and MMOCs, which stand for Massive Open Online Courses. And we will be discussing how our overall topic, which is how the internet has changed how we learn. So, first off, I first want to go over, for those who don't know, what MOOCs are. And here we will find a definition according to Google, which MMOCs are courses of study that are made available over the internet, that are free and are open to a large number of people. And M stands for massive, O stands for open, and the other O stands for online, and the C stands for course. And then I also want to share this photo that I found that talks about how the goes over the learning system for MMOCs. And as you can see here, the learner is it's more so like a feedback loop, and where the learner is engaging with the MMOC, and they go back and forth, and this and also while taking the MMOC, they engage in informal learning discussions and are able to engage on forums and content hosts. And the MOOC teaches a global knowledge pool, and which helps the individual specialize, refine, and revise and explore their learning experience. And I thought this is a very well put together picture that shows how the learning system works. I'm a visual person, I think, for the most part, and so being able to see something and process of it, I feel like is useful. The next thing I want to go over in what are MMOCs is talk about different aspects of MMOCs and what are the advantages of MMOCs and what makes up MMOCs. So on this article, which is also where I got the diagram from, I wanted this. They kind of have a little sponsored thing. It's not sponsored apparently, but this article is a little advertisement-y. So just look beyond that. And it was also written by a millennial applied psychologist, which their name is here. And this was published in 2018 and updated in 2020. But over this article explains more in depth what MMOCs are, and also what they consist of, and this is the photo here that I shared earlier on the screen. And so, firstly, I wanted to kind of break down MMOCs and what they are about, and talk and specifically highlight the advantages of MMOCs. So the first advantage mentioned by this article written in Cognition Today is that the content of MMOCs are very high quality. So here in this part of the article, they talk about how most of the content within MMOCs is very well curated, and there is a wide variety of it, which is really great for just anybody who wants to learn anything, which is a benefit to having the internet and the accessibility of the internet. And another part of it is that because the content is widely uh, or is very extensive and veritable, um, the person who wishes to enroll in an MMOC or engage in an MMOC, they can pick and choose what they would like to learn, um, and have the ability to deep dive into interests that they want to look in instead of taking a course and having to dive into a bunch of different things that may not be relevant to what they wish to learn. Um, the next thing about MMOCs is that the MMOCs create a sense of community. And some of the things that I would like to highlight about this part of the article here is that most MMOCs offer the ability to connect and collaborate and communicate with others, and this offers an ability to expand upon the course content and also take feedback from your peers who are also enrolled in the course. And you are capable of kind of creating a sense of community. And I think like learning in itself should feel like a community. I think that learning is better. Um, I guess from my perspective, I think that learning is better. Um, the experience of learning, I feel like, is better when there is a sense of community surrounding it. Because that also brings like motivation to learn, wanting to engage more with the material, etc. So the MMOCs that have a sense of community that surround them, um, they do a great job at implementing community. Um, and here in this article, they mostly highlight this program, or this not program, this like MMOC uh, site, and but I think this could be applicable to any MMOC. Hence why I feel like this is why they posted it on the website, because I don't know. I feel like that wouldn't be great if they posted something that wasn't relevant to many OCs. Anyways, the the third thing I wanted to mention is about MMOCs is that the instructors of the MMOCs are also um, a benefit to the whole concept of MMOCs, because the instructors are usually high quality and top notch, as they say here. And the video qualities and the content that they create is also very high quality. Um, and they are also, the instructors also, what I think is really cool about MMOCs, and I think that more MMOCs should implement, or just regular courses, is that the instructors prepare extensive guidelines that can be referenced by the students who are taking the MMOC. And I think this is a really great um, implementation of MMOCs, because it helps the individual still, you know, have the individual aspect of MMOCs, which is like the kind of self-guided um, content, but also at the same time they like create these things where I don't know. I like having like lots of structure, and that's why I like in-person classes because they provide that structure, and I have that structure to my day, and it like creates that sense of accountability, and I think that preparing these guidelines also creates a similar effect. Another thing that I thought was really cool was that they prepare a solution rubric. And this, I really liked how they put it. I really liked how they put it, which is why I wanted to show this, like the article, is that it can be used as a bridge between not knowing and knowing. And what I also really love is that it referenced a psychological phenomenon because I love psychology. And I also learned this term last semester, which is scaffolding. And scaffolding is a method of which individuals use to facilitate learning. I learned this in child development because scaffolding is a large part of learning when it comes to child development. But it doesn't end there. And I think that um, people who aren't children are capable of implementing scaffolding into their learning. And I think that it's really cool that these MMOC instructors utilize scaffolding to help facilitate the learning of the individual who's taking the course. And I think scaffolding is important when you are learning something because if it's self guided, then and you get stuck somewhere, like not knowing what you're supposed to do or not knowing the next steps or how to fix the mistakes that you made, I think that having those things to reference that utilize scaffolding, I think is really beneficial. And the last part of the article that I wanted to mention is that MMOCs create the ability to share perspectives and have new perspectives. And MMOCs, specifically, what I wanted to note is that MMOCs create a new perspective about learning where learning in the traditional sense is very cut and dry. You go to a class, you have a quiz, you sit in a lecture that's like I guess an hour-ish long. You go to the lab, which is like 3 hours long. I had a lab that went until 9 p.m. Last year, and that was kind of rough. But besides the fact, like it kind of creates a new perspective of how can people learn, and I think that's really cool because MMOCs themselves, by creating this new perspective about like learning and teaching, I mean creating this new perspective about teaching creates a new like perspective about learning. I Because I feel like they go hand in hand. um, and then that also leads me to how MMOCs create a new perspective on learning, because as I just said, they go hand in hand. And MMOCs like create this new perspective by being able to um, not necessarily like learn in the traditional sense, but in like a more modernized and accessible way. Because if you think like about how um, you know, like the traditional ways of learning, like you see how MMOCs expand upon that and also implement a more individualistic and like personalized view about learning. And also for teaching sense, like when you teach an MMOC, you begin to like kind of change your perspective about teaching too. But this is about learning, not teaching. But I just thought I would mention that because I don't know. I thought it was really cool. So yes, this is the article that I wanted to share about that. Um, and then I also wanted to talk about the difference between online courses and MMOCs. And this article here, or I guess it's not really an article, but it's like a web page by the University of Cape Town. They explained the differences between MMOCs and the similarities between MMOCs and online courses. And some of the things that I wanted to point out about this web page was that MMOCs are self-guided, and they are designed to run with no lecturer involvement, and therefore they cover usually the basics of the content that they're learning, and they utilize videos and quizzes to teach the learner what they are like, I guess, what they're taking the course about. And also another benefit and another difference between the two are that MMOCs are freely accessible to anybody who is capable of accessing them, which all that means is that you got to have access to internet. And many people have access to the internet, and that just continues to grow every day, I feel like, or year. But I feel like it's more. I feel like every day more and more people have access to the internet around the world. So, um, yeah, that's pretty cool. And we can go more into depth about um, the differences between the two. Um, Here, I guess, are this is so. I guess it goes over the the numbers. I think numbers of students. Yes, participants. Okay. Numbers of students. So in the online courses, only a limited number, and in MOCs, many, if not like anybody, can join them. So there's no limit on whether or not the class is full or whatever. Um, then they in an online course, participants are expected to have their motivation solely on receiving credit, or receiving like a certificate for completion of the course, or like, for example, I feel like that's more like a external type of motivation. And as we all know, well, not all, but if you know psychology, um, external motivation isn't the best type of motivation. It's internal motivation that's the better motivation, and that creates better outcomes and more more desired behaviors that can go into reaching your goals. And so MOOCs have a variety of motivators or motivations, and I think, though, that MMOCs are more likely to have that internal motivation of the student who enrolls in an MMOC. Um, and I think that's really beneficial and shows that like MMOCs kind of have a grasp on like the psychology of learning, which I think is pretty cool. Um, Here it's like the profiles, so I guess like the demographics and things of it. So these participants in the online courses, they have like fixed, like, who, like, what the group, I guess the cohort is the picture or the word that they use, but the group of people who are enrolled in the online courses are usually the same demographic, versus in MMOCs they are a wide variety of demographics, which also I think relates to the what I was talking about having like a new perspective and creating like a community in within MLSCs. I think that is also very beneficial to have, like, that wide variety of demographic within an MOSC, because then you are exposed to all these different perspectives and all these different cultures and identities and such, which I think are also beneficial to learning. Um, and I just think that's really cool. Um, I keep saying that's really cool. I should probably stop that, so I apologize. But yeah, I don't know. That's just, I guess, I had to say for that part. um, and also when I was talking about like motivation, in terms of like assessments, assessments for online courses are a big motivator for learning when it comes to online learning courses or online learning, virtual learning. And these are also aligned with the learning objectives of the institution, which I think is not really beneficial if you are somebody who doesn't necessarily like learning in the traditional sense and you want to expand upon like learning and not necessarily be with like conformed or like conform or like just be put in like a box and told like this is what you're supposed to do, kind of like a robot. I don't know, I feel like that is more likely an online course, or yeah, online learning course, versus in MMOCs the assessments can be optional and flexible, and they're not always a motivator for the individuals who are engaged in the MMOC. And so you have an assignment, but it isn't the motivation for learning. And that's kind of what I was also saying about the internal motivation behind MMOCs, and how like that internal motivation works to engage people and to like and to get people to want to learn, and as opposed to forcing people to learn and like and have like an extrinsic or not yeah an extrinsic motivation for it. um and a really big one is that the online learning courses cost money, and MMOCs um, are basically having free access to this course to have free access to the educational content. And I guess all they have to pay is for the money, or sorry, for the internet. And so that's pretty cool. I honestly really love the part that like it's free, because I think that money is a very large barrier for everybody, and the opportunities that one can like obtain or like have in their lives, money I think plays a big role. So having MMOCs for free is definitely pretty cool. No, that's pretty amazing. I think that people are capable of accessing this content for free. And I guess the role of the educator um, in online learning courses is similar to, I guess, like one if you were to have like a in person or synchronous course, and uh, always like being engaged with the students, always being present, versus in MMOCs, um, the educator is present, and but the time and resources like don't allow for that personal like personalization or that personal connection with an educator or like their guidance. And the students are expected to be self-directed, and I think this could go in either direction though, because if you have um, if you have students who really thrive on like that connection and having that guidance from somebody, I think that would be really beneficial to one's learning. But if you have students who are pretty capable of not having that or not needing that, I think that's also MOCs are a really great choice. Um, it also makes me consider like the challenges that individuals with learning disabilities face when if they were to enroll in an MMOC, because of the lack of like communication and I guess guidance or possible lack of communication, or guidance from an educator. I think that might be challenging when it comes to an individual with a learning disability. For example, I struggle with learning disability, and I really appreciate when like my educators are able to give me that guidance and to support me when I need it. Um, and in order to be successful in a course. And I think that was one of the hard things about like um, COVID-19 and like having like all online courses was because a lot of my a lot of my like ability to do well, I think really thrives on like my sense of connection and how and how much support I have from the people around me, because I haven't really been given that much support um, in my life. So my educators are very important to me and special to me. Um, and yeah, you could call me a teacher's pet, but um, that is okay. I have no shame. um, so yeah, I guess those are the things that I wanted to go over in regards to that article. And now I wanted to dive even deeper into how MMOCs change the way that we learn um, via the internet. And the first article I wanted to, sorry, the first article I wanted to look at is the article that was shared in Unit 2 of the course, which Unit 2 is learning via the internet, which I thought was relevant. And so a little, I guess, about the article is it talks about how like the different shifts in within like different not eras, what I'm trying to think of, like different systems, different um different like business things. I don't know what word I'm trying to go for, but like I guess yeah, that's gonna bother me. But yeah, so I guess the different like they talk about how like for example in the music industry and how Napster changed how like the music industry worked and like it had a really big impact on like how the system like worked and how that changed and now like it's a part of our day-to-day lives. And so this author here wants to is like making parallels to like education and specifically MMOCs. Um, and so here in the article, they're talking about the parallels, I guess, or like the kind of the story behind it. Um, and see here, I actually really enjoyed this article because um, they kind of like I don't know how to describe it, but they make it like very entertaining to read. It's not some very like formal piece that I don't know. Sometimes those are really interesting to read. I personally really like those, but sometimes it's nice to have like that variety. But besides the point, they are talking about Udacity, which is an educational startup. And a little backstory about Udacity was that um, it was founded by um, Sebastian Thurn, David Stavins, and Mike Solosky. Um, and uh, here at Udacity, I will pull up the page to show you guys. Um, at Udacity, they offer a variety of courses that are related to different areas of technology. So here you can learn about data science, programming, business, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, product management, cloud computing, cybersecurity, all these different things. And I think that's really cool, especially because it is technology based. And I think that technology has like is just going to expand. I feel like a lot of our day to day lives, I feel like are kind of determined by technology, and I think more and more careers are going to be created because of technology. And so I really think it's pretty cool that we're able to have access to things that are going to be so applicable, especially to like our future potential jobs and things like that. And so um, I just overall think the Udacity is a very great concept. And furthermore, regarding the Shirky article, there were a few things I wanted to point out um, regarding the Shirky article that I thought were astounding and also um, relate to how MMOCs change the way we learn from like the internet and just how the internet changes how we learn. And so, in the article, they stated that um, the top 50 colleges in the U.S. and News World Report list only educate about like 3% of the current student population, and the entire list of 250 colleges educates fewer than 25%. And I thought that this aspect was like, or this, I guess, statistic was extremely shocking, um, considering the fact, like, I don't know, as like a college student, I think college is a very common thing that is a part of a lot of our lives, like, and people my age, like 19 to like 22, I think a lot of people go to college. And so it was pretty shocking to learn that only or less than 25% of the student population on that list, like, or the entire list, only educates fewer than 25%. Um, and that was pretty interesting. Uh, Here, I'm trying to find it in the article. I don't really know where. I forgot where it was in the article. Here, here. And so, yeah, I thought that was pretty like shocking. And then it kind of makes me think of like MOOCs, and how they create like less of a gap between like for example, like it's just really shocking that like 25 less than 25% of the entire student population is educated by those 250 colleges. And I think like MOOCs and like how they're utilized, I think can help the people who aren't within the 25% to still receive like an education. And that's why I think it is relevant. Um, to like this statistic is relevant to the argument for MMOCs and why they are a great way to lessen the gap of like between like or increase the amount of people who can receive an education. Um, Another thing that I wanted to point out is that um, it's like similar is related to. I'm trying to find it in the article. Um, I think it's. I have another thing. I don't know where it is. Mm. Okay, wait. I'm gonna. Okay, here. This is the quote that I wanted to point out. Um, is that kind of like what I was talking about before? How like the possibilities of MOOCs are pretty substantial. Like there's just so many different things that MOOCs can be used for, and like all the educational aspects that are fit into the typical like college education, the traditional like form of receiving a college education can be unwrapped and taken apart and be given to individuals who are less fortunate, who might not be able to afford a college education, or those who aspire to become more educated. Because I believe that like learning and becoming more educated like is a really amazing thing. And I think more people should have that opportunity to do that, as opposed to having economic means create a barrier to receiving that. And MOOCs lessen that barrier and make it more accessible for people, um, which I think is very, very cool. I always say that it's just very meaningful, I guess, to me that, you know, that more people have access to these types of education, because I want more people to be educated. I want more people to learn. I think that learning is an amazing ability that we're blessed with as human beings, and I want us to engage in learning constantly, because we all are engaging in learning every single day, and receiving an education and the importance of education when it comes to like societal standards, our individualistic culture, our Western culture, in the U.S., and how an education feeds into that, and how the current educational system, the traditional educational system feeds into that. This kind of also lessens the pressure of like have to go through all those steps, having to go and be a part of this system, this traditional system, when there's so many more opportunities to expand upon that system and do better for people who are less fortunate, who are at a disadvantage, um, who don't have those opportunities. Yeah, I think there was another thing that kind of related to that, that I just wanted to point out, because it was honestly really it was honestly somewhat relatable. Yes, here. Um, in the US, an undergraduate education used to be an option, one way to get into the middle class. Now it's a hostage situation, required to avoid falling out of it. And if some of the hostages having trouble coming up with ransom conclude that our current system is completely a terrible idea, then learning will come unbundled from the pursuit of a degree, just as songs became unbundled from CDs. And so I totally like find this part of the article just to be super empowering, I guess, because it takes a sum. You don't have to. It can't be one person, but it doesn't have to be hundreds. If some people think that, like, if they think that this system is bad and they want to change it, and they come up with all these great ideas about how to change it, like how to change the system, how to make the system better, how to make the system work for more people, then do it. Like it's so much more. I guess it's just better for everybody, and that can relate to a bunch of things in history too. Like when you are when you when like all the things in history, people have had to go against the norms, had to break the norms in history to create change. Um, and similar to like this situation, MMOCs have the potential to break the system, to break this norm, and normalize like having education be accessible to all. And as I stress too, I it should be equal. There should be a sense of equality and also equity when it comes to receiving an education. Those with privilege should be appreciative of the privilege, and those who are less fortunate, who don't receive those privileges, should be given more opportunities and should be given more support when it comes to receiving those opportunities and those and help them achieve the things that they were at a disadvantage before. And also too, an education can help open up those opportunities and create more opportunities. So but it's hard to get there when you don't have the opportunity to receive the education in the first place. So yeah, that's like my strong opinion, my opinion piece, I guess, for this part. um, Now I want to move on to the controversies of MOOCs, since I wanted to kind of highlight all aspects of MOOCs and like the dynamics, uh, like of how it changed learning and like the pushbacks and the arguments against and for. And so I wanted to highlight um, the controversies with MOOCs. Here's the article that I will be examining, and we can have access to a trying to think what's called like a PDF. Okay, yes, okay. I was just checking to make sure that everybody can see it. And so under number 4 in the article, it says this part of the article highlights the problems and challenges that MOOCs face, and bringing them to light because with everything there are pros and cons. So the first one that I wanted to highlight in the controversies was that they have high dropout rates, which range from 75 to 95%. And this is a very significant number, compared to, I think, like I don't know, like for example, UW Madison. Let's look at the UW Madison dropout rate. This doesn't really give me an answer, but maybe it's on here. I don't necessarily. I don't know. I don't really know what this graph means. I'm not good with numbers. But I know that it's less than MMOCs significantly. Well, maybe not significantly, but like substantially. Significantly is, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily use this term, but that was one of the controversies. Another one that the article highlighted was a lack of pedagogical, I don't know if I'm saying that word right, um, rigor or adequate monitoring. And those are some big words. So I wanted to understand those, that sentence and kind of break it down. And I, but I'll, yes. So basically, what that sentence means is that the education or the teaching process, it lacks strict standards and proper supervision. That's basically one of the problems that people are facing within MOOCs, that could potentially like be related to the high dropout rates of MOOCs. Another one is the where is it? The lack of quality in instructional design. I believe though that this is not necessarily true of all MOOCs. I think it just depends on, like, I think that there probably is a lot of MOOCs out there on the internet, and therefore you are going to get a wide variety of quality when it comes to MOOCs and the instructional design. But perhaps the instructional design doesn't necessarily mean like video quality and things like that. It could also mean like how effective is the lecturer at teaching the information, how effective or how like what is the quality of like the assignments that the students are given. There's a bunch of different things that could relate to that. And I think too, like the like regards to like the quality of like the assignments, like having assignments that aren't always like in the same format, I think that that might um, draw students away from the course and or like not allowing like creativity necessarily, um, or like a information formation piece, like not letting students expand upon their ideas and thoughts, more so like I don't know. I think there's just a wide variety of what instructional design could mean. Um, and where's the other one? Um, there's also another one. I can't really find it in here because there's lots of words there. But um, oh yes. Okay. And okay, and then also though related to the lack the words I can't say, that's like the really complex sentence. Um it also is related to like the quality and the effectiveness. And it's not like a person's desire someone's desired level, and there might not be enough tension that's given to the design and the structure of the process, the educational process of the course, or it's there's not enough like um understanding or information to ensure whether or not like the education is being delivered effectively to the person, which I guess just kind of relates to like what I was saying earlier. I kind of forgot that I wrote that, but alas I remembered, so that's good. um, and then another reason was the lack of contacts, or sorry, contact between the participants and of the teaching learning process. um and I think also like I personally relate to this problem versus like in virtual environments. Like yeah, you can see and like are aware of the professor being there, but having like personal contact and like being able to interact and engage with like your instructor, I think is very important, and it is really important to me anyway. Like I love like just seeing my professor. I literally love it. uh I'm sorry, that's I sound weird, but I love seeing my professor like right in front of me, and I love seeing like their eyes like just light up when they're talking about like what they're like teaching that day, or it reminds them of some other thing that they're also really passionate about. And I just love being in that room and experiencing their like passion and their like energy. And I don't know, it like I it feels a sense of connection, and like maybe that sense of connection, maybe I'm just like a weirdo and I think too much about things, and I think things are more important than they are, or more special than they are. But I absolutely love like being in the same room as my professor and seeing their like joy and seeing their passion like for what they teach, and them put so much effort into what they teach and truly like express that to their students through like the sparkles in their eyes, or like how they're just like they can't stop walking around, and I don't know, like they just have so much energy. And just being in that room like really just makes learning for me anyway like the best experience of my life. I love college. I love all my professors. I love everybody on in the world. um yeah, that's probably how I sound right now. um but anyways, so yeah, that might be another reason why MOOCs aren't um or that's another problem with MOOCs. Um and then the next one would be where is it? Oh, like there's like a bunch of them, but I'm just picking out like a few to go over. The teacher is not effectively fulfilling their role as facilitator and does not establish a learning environment where they discuss, interact, and collaborate with students. Um, and so that's kind of what I was talking about like before too, a little bit. Like, due to MOCs being primarily individual based and self like taught, um, then that creates like a lack of, I guess, the like teacher's role in facilitating that learning. It's more so like the teacher is just explaining that and like saying the information, sharing this, dispersing the information, but that doesn't leave for a lot of discussion and commentary and back and forth, like between like the content and like what, and like the content and like forming like your own opinion, forming your own ideas. And I think the whole, it's like that's, I think that's like a really important part of learning, like being able to have that back and forth, to like engage with it, because if you're just sharing information, that doesn't give the student a, like it doesn't allow the student necessarily to engage deeper with the material if they can't have like a back and forth, if they can't raise their hand in lecture and ask a question and things like that, um, instead like sending an email. But like, quick sidetrack, I went I had I took biology 101, I think. Yeah, I think it was 101 or 102. Maybe 102 is the lab. I don't know. But one day after lecture, we were taught about genetics, and I I before taking a psychology class, I really wanted to be a genesis, like a geneticist, or like somebody like in bio. I wanted to do biotechnology and like look at genetics, like the genes of like, and create something. I guess it's hard to explain, but basically like, like for example, um the yellow rice was genetically modified, like rice was genetically modified to have vitamin C in it because people in Asia weren't receiving enough nutrients through their diet, and so they genetically modified rice in order to give them vitamin C, like as like a nutrition. And that's kind of how it was created. Also, that rice is delicious, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, besides that point, oh, see, I just went on another tangent. I went on a tangent and then I went on another tangent. You gotta love how my brain works. But like I was so passionate about what the professor was teaching that day that I wrote like email that would be probably like 3 pages long if you were to put it into a document. And it had all these ideas, and I was actually, it was actually a question about how technology is altering like our genetics, like in the future, like how will evolution be affected by technology, similar like how like how does the internet affect our biology. That would be a good question for future assignment, maybe. I don't know. And also, psychology is like part biology and like philosophy, so I don't know. anyways, anyways, thanks for joining me on that sidetrack. Um, but yes, it was very much more engaging and made me want to like engage more with the material and learn more by being able to have that communication with my professor and have that consistency. And of course, my professor said that my email was very long, but they really appreciate my enthusiasm and would love to meet with me to discuss all my questions and my theories about how will our genetics be changed by technology. So that was really cool because, usually I feel like a professor might get that email and be like, this student's a little crazy. I digress. So there's that point there. And that was all the controversies behind MOOCs and the downsides to them. And now I'm going to counter argue that argument or that controversy, the arguments behind the controversies. And I have two articles here. The first one that I'm going to use is a case for MOOCs. And we're going to look at the conclusion of this article. That's current concerns. The conclusion of the article. So, in the article here, they also mention the high dropout rates of MOOCs and how that is a concern. And how these things, how the dropout rates kind of go against the idea that MOOCs are a path towards enlightenment of the masses. I really like that phrase. It's good. I like that phrase. I like that they put it in there. And an argument that I guess a counter argument to what I said previously. Well, this also just pertains to what I was saying, I guess, earlier, but until recently, higher education has been something reserved for those with the means to attain it and has been viewed by some as being guarded by ivy walls. MOOCs may be the answer to disseminating knowledge worldwide. Again, I think that this article in itself doesn't create a concrete counter argument to what the people in the other article were saying, but it, I think, partly does, because it also kind of goes back to how MOOCs, a purpose behind MOOCs, which is making it more accessible to the masses, and how it may be the answer to disseminating knowledge worldwide because it is able to reach people worldwide through the internet, and that has so much potential to change through all of change the ability of how people learn online. How do people learn on the internet, especially through MOOCs? And I do, though, really highly appreciate that this article talks about that further studies will need to be done, investigating the demographics of who sign up for MOOCs. I think that is a very respectful thing to put, especially in a research article, because if I learned anything from research methods, future steps. What are future steps in a study? I'm super happy that they put this in here. And so they want to investigate the demographics of those people who sign up for MOOCs, and the different characteristics, the individual characteristics of them. But I also thought that it was very admirable that they began to theorize about these demographics or these individual characteristics of the individuals. That they are self-directed learners who need mentoring, or they are new to online learning and need a bit of guidance, or they made an error in their judgment and they signed up for the course even though it might not have been the best idea. I really think that these are valid and interesting future directions for this study. And I'm just really glad that they pointed it out. And it's also a really good thing to consider, that, maybe MOOCs aren't made for everybody. And maybe, there needs to be future studies regarding the demographics that who signs up for MOOCs and who does well in MOOCs and who drops out. And then you can kind of create, like, I guess, characterizations. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but I think is very important. And you can create a better understanding of then, like, how, like, what works for what person. If that type of if MOOCs work better for this type of learner, then maybe they should take an MOOC and they should utilize an MOOC learning or educational structure. Versus if MOOCs aren't as effective for people who will do better in a traditional setting, I think that also needs to people need to be aware of that. Um, and the next article that I wanted to go over is um, another article that are MOOCs as change agents to boost innovation in higher education learning areas. And we're going to look at the abstract of this article here. And through, sorry, through the findings, they have found that the benefits of MOOCs are in various areas. They promote lifelong learning. They promote professional competence development. They promote validation of learning and degree recognition, and clarify several business models of higher education. And this kind of makes me like think about how MOOCs are really great for people who just love learning, who are lifelong learners, because they're capable of learning so many different things and they want to expand their knowledge. And I think MOOCs are really great for that opportunity. Learning professional skills and developing those skills to be better at your profession. Um, Having more validation in the learning, I think that relates to like the intrinsic desire of learning and educating yourself through MOOCs, and why it's a crucial component to have that intrinsic motivation to do that. Degree recognition, MOOCs, um, they offer like proof, I guess, that people have completed this type of learning and completed that course or whatnot. And regarding the business models of higher education, there is definitely a business model to higher education. There is an economic motive, I think, behind the educational, more so like um, the traditional educational system. I think there is like economic motivations in that because in the articles that we were talking about, or like in one of our discussions of how like the rise of a college education, like the cost of a college education has increased. I think that is kind of related to like economic motivations because like when all the baby boomers went to college, it was extremely cheap. I remember over the summer I tell people I go to Madison at my job because they always ask, and not because they didn't ask, they asked me. Um, I know I tend to talk a lot though, so I don't know. Maybe sometimes they don't even ask. Well, it's fine. Anyways, the guy he asked me where I go to school, and I told him Madison, and he he was saying, "Oh, when I went to Madison, it was only like a couple $1,000, or not even. I think it was under like it was very cheap. I don't know the exact cost, but he went like sometime in like the 60s or something. Um, and now, like in-state tuition is, I think, like around 12K, but out-of-state tuition is like extremely expensive. I think it's like around 55K for Madison. So you can see how like that is significant, exponentially grown. And we have to, I think, like being part of the system and being being engaged in the system, whether or not you're like a student or like an educator, I think it's important to be aware of those things and be aware of the economic motivations behind, like, who does, like, do the thousands of dollars that we spend at our university, um like, go into the university, like, as much as we want them to? Do they, or do they get spent on things that could be set could people could say that they benefit the students and benefit, like, the learning that's happening here? And I think too, though, like, it is valid, like, if it funds, like, academic research, um, or helps students pay for their textbooks and things like that. Madison doesn't do that, but my twin sister, she goes to South Dakota State, and her school covers the students' football tickets. They can go to any football game for free. They could get free textbooks. They have access to all of the amenities of the building. So many things, like, aren't put behind, like, a paywall. But at Madison, you have to pay hundreds of dollars for textbooks. You have to pay for paper in the printer. Oh my gosh, I've spent, like, probably over $50. Probably even more than that at my time at Madison. Um, there's so many things Madison has students spend even more money on, on, uh, on. And so I guess that's another thing about MOOCs, though, is, like, because they're free to access, that the economic motivations behind it aren't, I guess, corrupt. I'm not saying that the traditional education system isn't corrupt when it comes to economic motivations, but I think that there's a little more gray area compared to MOCs that don't have any gray area, that because they're free to access. So yeah, that's that. And the next topic I want to discuss are other online learning platforms. And so I um, I first wanted to kind of briefly state that there are MOOCs and there are online learning platforms, and as I went over, online like courses are, like, different compared to MOOCs, but there also are things that are similar to MOOCs but aren't necessarily in, like, a formal academic setting. So for example, in the article that was in Unit 2, how many turn to YouTube for how-to lessons, they it is kindly highlighted that roughly half of YouTube users say the platform is very important for helping them figure out how to do things that they never done before. And so here's a little picture. And so I think, like, YouTube is a very great way to learn things how that you didn't know before, that you didn't learn before, or, like, just learning a new skill. And I think that is, like, kind of parallels with MOOCs, because there's such a variety of content on MOOCs. You can learn, like, many, like, new things that you didn't know before. It's similar to YouTube videos. You can look up a YouTube video on how to do anything, and you will find something. Maybe not something always what you're looking for, but something similar. And that also too, I think YouTube feels like creativity, I think, in learning too, because let's say you have a YouTube tutorial about um, how to paint a picture. How to paint a picture. And that picture you paint, you can follow step by step of what the person is painting in the video, or you can take your own creative spin on it and expand upon it and create your own unique piece of art, which I think can be applicable to any YouTube tutorial. And the next one I wanted to highlight is Khan Academy, which is another online learning platform that is also free. I believe it's like free. I don't know if there's like a premium thing, but Khan Academy like offers so many different things, so many different videos that are either like that can be used to like support your learning, but also learn new things. And I think like too, online learning platforms and like MOCs or like traditional courses, I think can utilize can be shared like together, like can be can like coexist. They can coexist. Like Khan Academy is online, but if you have a traditional course that's like in person, like you can still utilize like both different modes of like learning and still like benefit you as like a learner. Um, and so here's like a visual of like what Khan Academy looks like. So for this course, I made a Khan Academy account, and I'm not really great at math. I am really bad at math. I am really bad, absolutely terrible. But so I wanted to look at the different like math classes that they have on Khan Academy. So they have college algebra, and I took college algebra. I did not do well in it because I'm not great at math, and they don't allow you to have a calculator. And in all honesty, I never learned multiplication, so I cannot do multiplication in my head. Um, so that was a really challenging course, but this Khan Academy can help me like learn more and kind of support me more in like learning. If I had a Khan Academy account my freshman year, then maybe I could have done better, or I could have expanded upon my learning by utilizing Khan Academy. Um, and I also have like a personal interest in learning like computer coding and different coding languages, and so I wanted to see like what the computer science course was like. And then I also never taken a calculus class in my life, and I don't really know what calculus even is. So, and I have to take calculus, um, which I'm not looking forward to. But Khan Academy here has all these different types of calculus. I don't really know what calculus class like is taught at Madison. Like I don't know what kinds of calculus. I didn't even know there were multiple kinds of calculus, but I guess there are. So that's cool. Um, MCAT. I wanted to be a psychiatrist before COVID, and COVID kind of took that dream away from me. But the MCAT, you can like study for the MCAT. So who knows? Maybe depending on if I were to do this Khan Academy course and see how I did, maybe pre med is still in my future. Maybe I can still have my dream of being a pediatric psychiatrist. Who knows? Oh, another thing too, you can study for the LSAT. My dad really wants me to be a lawyer, so there you go. I can study law stuff. And I'm taking a criminology course, and that is really interesting, but I don't know much about that stuff. Um, but I really want to. I really want to learn like all this stuff because I don't know. It's really cool. I just love absorbing information. Um, so yes, Khan Academy. Khan Academy um, is another great online platform, and it has a wide variety of like things that are like topics that are within like the academic or the educational sphere, and like um, basic like basic courses that like are applicable to any college course, I guess, or not college course, but like you can take the basics of like what what are the things that like you have to take in college, like if like I'm sure they probably have statistics in Khan Academy, but like for example, like at Madison you need a qualitative A, a qualitative B, and you can like look and use like Khan Academy for like learning those basics of those types of math. um you They also have chemistry, I'm pretty sure they have psychology. They have sociology. My favorite video is um, my favorite video is the one about the looking glass self theory. That video is very educational, I guess. It doesn't really go in as depth as I really would want it, though. I'm not gonna lie, but um, it's definitely good if you want like a basic understanding of like things. Um, and then the last other online learning platform is the LinkedIn Learning. That's also talked about. And it was previously known as lynda.com. And they have like, they have a lot of courses. 14,000, that's a lot of courses. And they cover like such a wide spectrum that are either in the creative realm, the technology realm, or the business realm. So like graphic design, videography, music, uh, full stack web development, AI, data science, um, learning how to make better business decisions, managing conflict within businesses, leading, like being a leader. Like you can learn how to be a leader through an online class, like through an online learning platform. That is pretty cool, especially too, developing these skills and like utilizing online platforms to develop your skills and also find new skills, find new passions. It's just it's pretty cool. um, so I don't know. I think it's really cool. I might have to check out um, the leadership, um, topic, like the realms thing, um, because it is stressful being a leader, and I think that would benefit um, me. But yes, so this website here was shared to us in the assignment instructions, or one of the assignment instructions for the unit 2. Um, and it just talks about how UW-Madison has this connected and this offered to students to better their learning, which honestly, I have mad respect for UW-Madison for doing that for their students. And here, as you can see, I took this part of the article for my summary sheet. But it's really cool. And they have like all these questions that can help students set that up and receive that extra educational support through an online learning platform. Um, and I think that's just really amazing. See, like to all of these other online learning platforms, they have changed how learning occurs over the internet because it's accessible to so many people around the world. It makes learning the basics to more difficult things uh, simpler. You don't have to leave your room. You can just sit in your room and learn. And one might equate that maybe that's being lazy, or you're not putting enough effort in. But I think that, some people aren't given the privilege to um, do the things like in a traditional way. And so I really admired like having the online format of learning be accessible to all these people who might not have that opportunity. Um, so here is the too long didn't read. And in my last episode, I said TDLR. Yeah, I said TDLR. But actually, I have to write this down because like letters get mixed up in my head so much. But too long didn't read is TLDR. So instead of TDLR, TLDR, this is the TLDR, is that these are the major points that we went over in today's episode, which are like, what are MOOCs? Well, MOOCs are self-guided, accessible, and simple forms of learning via the internet. MOOCs and learning have significantly changed the realm of education when it comes to the internet and utilizing the internet, because the internet has increased accessibility to education via MOOCs and on the other online learning platforms. They're then creating less barriers when it comes to receiving education. Like, for example, accessibility is one, where people aren't able to have access to certain aspects of education, but MOOCs and other online learning platforms increase that accessibility. And also, too, economic barriers, and MOOCs break down, and also other online learning platforms break down these barriers to receiving education. And finally, MOOCs and online learning platforms allow people to learn new skills and new things, and also further develop their skills, and further develop their ability to learn. And I think something I did not write in there is that MOOCs can also help like shift the motivation to learn from extrinsic to intrinsic motivation, which then just leads to better outcomes, like leads to better leads to better like motivation to learn, leads to somebody becoming like a lifelong learner, developing those skills of learning. I think learning in itself is like a skill process. I think you have to develop skills to like learn, to like learning skills. For example, if somebody's not a really great, I guess, attentive listener, then sitting in a lecture might be difficult, and obtaining that information, or absorbing that information might be difficult, because they're not like actively listening, but active listening is a skill that we need to develop. It's also great for communication, obviously, because if people are talking to you, you should be listening to them. Then I also in this podcast, I went over the controversies of MOOCs, which were the high dropout rates, the lack of personal contact between the instructor and the students, but as in addition to, like, in some cases, the students, like, and other students, the MOOCs lack strict standards and proper supervision when it comes to the courses, and the educator does not establish an effective learning environment within MOOCs. Then again, too, I think that these are all, what's a word? Like, they're not always applicable, because I'm sure there are plenty of MOOCs that create an effective learning environment. But also, too, I think that there are also just like individual characteristics that go into the deficits of MOOCs. And it's not necessarily, it might not be the MOOCs themselves, or it might be the MOOCs themselves, but like in the case that it isn't the MOOCs themselves, I think that having more awareness, or maybe no, in both cases, having more awareness about like these deficits and how like they're connected at the individual level, but also like the larger level, like the systematic level, I think are important for getting past like those deficits. The benefits behind MOOCs, even though, like, as I was just saying, like before and now, that needs to be more research done to fully understand the benefits, and also thereby combating the MOOC's deficits. And by developing better understanding, developing more knowledge, I think will thereby improve the quality, the effectiveness, etc. of MOOCs. And also the benefits of MOOCs I went over, which are lifelong learning, professional competence development, validation of learning, degree recognition, and understanding the business model of higher education. Um, and finally, I also went over other online learning platforms um, within this podcast, and I will summarize it. I've kind of already summarized it in these few sentences, but the internet itself has expanded the realm of education via online platforms that allow individuals to learn new skills and receive educational support. So, for example, YouTube has a lot of content for people to learn new skills that they might not have known before. Khan Academy offers a variety of content that can either help someone learn something new or offer educational support for something that they are currently trying to learn. And LinkedIn Learning allows people to expand their knowledge within the realms of creativity, business, and technology. And they're capable of learning all these different skills, and that can be applicable to their life, to their businesses, to their education, to many different aspects of their life. And I think that's pretty cool. um, and long story short, the ability to learn via the internet is a fantastic, amazing, like creation. I think that, learning, as I have said probably so many times, learning is like a super natural, not a supernatural, but like a super amazing gift that we as human beings have been given. We have been given the ability to learn. Our brains are capable of learning so much, and we should really take advantage of that. We should really take advantage of our ability to learn. And the internet helps us do that. The internet has changed from us not having to learn, or maybe not having to learn, but not having the ability to learn, like as much as we can learn now. We can learn so many more and more things now compared to before the internet. And the internet has opened us to learning new skills that weren't even skills before. Like, what in, let's say, like the 1850s, could people even learn computer coding? No, because computers didn't even exist. People, if you said coding, I don't think that they would even know. I don't even know if that was a word. It might have been, but I don't know what that word would mean then. But now you can take a computer coding course or learn about computer coding online. Um, and that's pretty cool. I say keep saying pretty cool. Um, but yeah, I think just overall the ability to learn on the internet is pretty cool. And on a side note, I also really wanted to share within this podcast the skills that I learned for one of the assignments for the course. And that assignment was assignment number 2, and we had to learn 2 skills. Um, and um, we we had to learn 2 skills, and so um, I wanted to show off. I wanted to show the skills I learned. So first, I made some crayons for the Valentine's Day social event that I wanted to have for my student organization, and I'm gonna work with my events coordinator to arrange that event. And I'm really excited too because she has some really great ideas. I just had my executive board meeting earlier today, and she was telling me that she wants to make like those little uh, Valentine's Day boxes, and like people make like little Valentine's Day boxes for themselves. And so when they're feeling like down or they need some like self love, like they have like a little Valentine's box that they can fill with like candy and like nice notes for themselves, and also like have some crayons and do some art. So that was pretty cool. That was one of the skills I learned. Um, and then the second skill I learned was coding in Lua. And um, I also want to show pictures of myself as a kid. So I don't know. I was an iPad kid-ish, except I wasn't an iPad kid. I don't know. I don't think I was an iPad kid because I spent time outside. And besides that, here's also a picture of me and my sister. um, Ellie on the computer as well. So computers were a big part of our lives. Um, Here's me as like a baby. I don't know how old I am, but I look like a boy. um, but as you can see, computers are a really big part of my life and technology. Um, and so here is the script that I wrote in Lua for that assignment. Um, and here's like each part of the code that I created. And it was a total of 245 lines. And it also included modeling, scripting, animating, designing, and yeah, that was pretty cool. Here it's like a video of the game that I created, like its final form as well. I don't know if this will play. Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Um, Not sure. Oh, and also too, and during when I was learning, like trying to teach myself how to script, um, I had output errors, which output errors basically tell you like what's wrong with like the code and like don't really necessarily tell you how to fix it, but it can help you like figure out how to fix it. So in this example here, it wasn't properly parented to a folder in the replicated storage. And then here's kind of how you would fix it. So like wait for child means like it waits for it to load in the game before trying to find it. Because if you try to find it when it isn't completely loaded in the game, then you won't be able to find it. And then to MBC5 dot parent is like parent basically means that like that's where it's that's like kind of what owns it, like that's where it like resides. um and I don't really know why this won't play. um Give me one moment, I think I can fix it. um One moment please. Okay, now I think this might play. Okay, yes, it plays. Okay, so basically the game, you have a customer, they ask for the order, and then you have to make the order. And at the top of the screen, you have the amount of time that's going to be left, like countdown, basically. Um, and there you can like bill, like I guess create the order, um, and then you give it to them, and then you also gain coins. This is a recipe book that tells the player how to create the order, since it's like a step-by-step process and you need to follow the steps, because if you don't follow the steps then you can't give the customer the order, which I will display later. Like I think I am displaying it right now. So I also made it so you can like there's 6 items that you can make for the customer. As you can see, I tried to give the donut to the customer, and they didn't take it because it's not their order. Um, and then at the end of the countdown, it tells you how many orders that you completed and also how many coins that you earned in the game. So that's pretty cool. And then I also want to show one last video, as you know, it's in the spirit of learning and also talking about YouTube videos and like how to YouTube videos, learning through like YouTube videos. There's this other video I would love to share as well. All right, so a little bit of a backstory behind this video. Um, my dad has a YouTube channel that is basically documentation of my whole life. which is kind of weird, but also I sometimes enjoy looking at these videos. But besides it, this video was taken when I was learning how to ride a bike, and I am teaching people about bike safety um, in this video. And so I would like to share this video because I think it relates to what I'm talking about in this episode, but also it's kind of cute. So, hi, I'm Katie. And this is what I'm going to show you all about bike safety. Here's your helmet. You use it when you're riding bike. Want to see how I ride my bike? Yeah, I broke my bike. And look what happened to it. A broken pedal. It should all be famous, but not like this pedal. Like this pedal. Okay, guys? Now, here's a go. If you're coming through the way, then people know that you're coming. Or you want to say hi to them, then you can move fast too. And your bike. Also, my twin sister took that video, so the video. Oh, um, the video cut off at the end. I don't know what I was gonna say then, but um, yes. So, in the spirit of learning and utilizing the internet to teach and learn, um, that video was, I guess, in my mind, a video that can help people learn how to ride a bike, like what you need to ride a bike, a helmet. You don't need a broken pedal, and you ring your bell when you are coming through the way, or if you want to say hi to somebody. Um, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please, I mean, you can go through the video, the YouTube channel if you want to look at all my childhood. But other than that, um, I hope that you all enjoyed this episode of my podcast, and I'm really looking forward to continue this podcast. And I really enjoyed creating this episode and putting all this work into creating this episode. So. Um, Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. Thank you so much.